Hey guys, this is Austin, and today I'm here with a gaming build for $1,500. Now for this kind of money, you're going to be getting some serious performance. Not only can you play pretty much any game you throw at it at 1080p or even 1440p, but you're also going to be able to get some very high frame rates, probably at least 60 on most games, and you can also turn pretty much any kind of graphics setting you want all the way up. If you're interested in more, I have builds all the way from $400 to $3,000, and you guys can check them out right here. And on top of that, if you've never built a computer before, I've done a full series showing you exactly step by step how to do it. So even if this is your first computer build, shouldn't be any problem. To kick our build off, we're going to be using an Intel Core i5-3570K processor. Now a lot of people think that if you're doing a gaming build, you have to have a Core i7. However, that's not the case at all. In fact, a Core i7 really isn't going to give you any better performance in games. Sure, you may get a couple frames here and there, but considering it's about $100 more, you can get a lot more performance if you put that money in other places. The Core i5 is a quad-core chip clocked at 3.4 GHz. However, since it's a K-series part, that means overclocking is going to be super easy. So 4 GHz is something that absolutely anyone can get, and with this build, you're probably going to be looking something more like 4.5 GHz once you get it fully overclocked. For about $220, this is an excellent start for our build. For CPU cooler, we're going to be using a CORSAIR H80 liquid cooler. Now water cooling in computers is a lot of times really expensive and really complicated. So you're going to have to get a reservoir, you're going to have to get a pump, you're going to get tubing, you're going to have to get all the fittings, you're going to have to figure out where everything goes, and it's just kind of a bit of a mess. However, this is going to be a lot simpler as it's a fully contained unit. So basically all you need to do is put it on your CPU and go ahead and mount it in the back of your case, and it's going to be no problem. And on top of that, of course, since it is water cooling, you're going to get some really nice performance out of your CPU. For about $80, this is going to be a great way to go. For a graphics card, we're going to be using an EVGA GTX 680 superclocked. Now in my opinion, the GTX 680 is the best single GPU card that you can buy. Now you could go with an AMD Radeon 7970 GHz edition, which will give you similar levels of performance. However, the 680 is going to run cooler, it's going to run quieter, it's going to take up less power while doing it. As the heart of our build, you're going to find 2 GB of GDDR5 memory, which is going to be plenty for any game out there right now. And on top of that, it is the superclocked edition, which means that it's overclocked right out of the box. So the core clock is going to be around 1100 MHz, and even the memory is going to be slightly overclocked. But of course, if you want to push it farther, it does have a dual fan design, which would help kind of get rid of all that heat and dissipate it a little bit better. So for about $480, this is going to be a perfect solution for our build. For our motherboard, we're going to be using a GIGABYTE GA-Z77X UD3H. Now, fantastic name aside, this is a really solid motherboard. So typically, I like to use GIGABYTE boards in my builds. In fact, I've got one in the build right behind me here, and there's a good reason. It's a really nice looking board with a black PCB and blue accents, which personally I think look awesome. But of course, it does have all the other features that you would expect, including SATA 3, USB 3, up to 32 GB of RAM, and one other thing is it does support SLI. So if you want, you can add another GTX 680 to this build, whether you want to do it immediately or you want to do it 6 months from now, and it will work in this motherboard and it will give you insane performance. So if you want to like game on maybe 3 monitors or something like that, it will work just fine. For about $155, this is going to be really awesome. For memory, we're going to be using 8 GB of Corsair Vengeance RAM. Now this stuff I've used in quite a few different builds before, and that's because it's really solid. So it is DDR3 RAM clocked at 1600 MHz. Now I kind of feel that that's the sweet spot for Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge. You can get faster clocked RAM, but in general you're going to be paying a lot more for really a very minor performance increase. Overall though, for $40 is going to be enough RAM to handle pretty much anything you throw at it. For an SSD, we're going to be using a 128 GB Samsung 830 series drive. Now in my opinion, an SSD is the #1 way to increase performance on your computer. And on top of that, since SSDs have gotten a lot cheaper lately, there's really no reason not to include one. Now the 830 is a bit of an older drive, however don't let that put you off at all. Not only is it still just as fast as pretty much the best SSDs out there right now, but it's also going to be quite a bit cheaper, and most importantly it's going to be very reliable. I used one myself and had zero problems with it. For about $90, it's going to be a great way to go. For a hard drive, we're going to be using a 2 TB Western Digital CAVIAR Black. Now as much as I love SSDs, to get something like 1 or 2 TB in an SSD is going to be ridiculously expensive. So the best way to do it is to pair it with a normal mechanical hard drive, and that's what we've done here. So the CAVIAR Black is definitely the #1 way to go as far as hard drives go for gaming computers. It's going to be quite a bit faster than a normal hard drive, nothing on an SSD, but still a pretty good improvement. And with 2 TB, you're going to be able to have all the kind of music, movies, games, all the kind of stuff that you want to put on there. It's going to be no problem. For about $160, it's going to be perfect for our build. For our power supply, we're going to be using a Corsair TX 750 watt. This is the same power supply that I use in my own build. I have absolutely no complaints about it. So for starters, you're going to get 750 watts of capacity, which is actually overkill for the system. However, if you want to do some future upgrades, you're not going to have any problem with that. Now it is a modular supply, which is definitely a good thing. What it allows you to do is only plug in the certain cables that you need. So otherwise you would have a whole mess of cables inside your case that you got to kind of tuck everywhere. With a modular supply, just plug in what you're going to need and you're going to be good to go. About $105, this is going to work perfectly. For a case, we're going to be using a Fractal Design Refine R4. Now I recently used the little brother to this case, the Core 1000, in my $400 build last month. I gotta say I was really impressed, so I decided to go with the bigger brother for this one. This is a quiet and cool case, which gets a big thumbs up from me. So you're going to find some noise dampening material built into the case. It's also really designed to kind of get rid of all the little vibrations and whatnot, which can, well, be vibrating and annoying and all that kind of stuff. But you do have plenty of room for all kinds of larger graphics cards, tons of hard drives, and just pretty much anything that you could throw in this system. For about $110, this is well worth it. For an optical drive, we're going to be using a Sony DVD burner. Now this is very optional. In fact, a lot of people don't even bother to put DVD or Blu-ray or any kind of drives in their systems these days. I don't blame you at all. However, it is going to be really cheap. And the big thing is that, for example, when you're installing Windows, or maybe you have a DVD or some kind of game that you want to install, it can come in handy. And considering it's only about $20, it's generally worth it for most people. However, again, if you want to upgrade this to a Blu-ray or just get rid of it altogether, absolutely feel free. Last but not least, we have a copy of Windows 7 Home Premium. Now this is very, very optional. In fact, I did not even include it in this build. The main reason is that there are quite a few other ways of getting Windows right now. For starters, you may already have a version of it, in which case, of course, it's free, or you may want to hold out till Windows 8, which comes out about a month or so from when I'm recording this video. Regardless, though, if you do want to go with Windows 7, it will add about $100 to the system cost. So there you guys have it, a $1,500 build which will handle pretty much anything you throw at it. Of course, prices are constantly fluctuating, so I'll have links to all the current prices in the description of this video. Since this is a custom gaming PC, feel free to customize it however you like. So I'll have some links in the description for some options. So for example, if you want to go with AMD on the graphics side, you want to get more RAM, you want to go with a Core i7 or anything else, I'll add some other additional options that will work just fine. If you guys want to see any of my other builds, feel free to check them out right here. And if you want to see the full tutorial on how to put together a computer, it will be right here. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to leave it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more videos like this, be sure to subscribe.